Xenon 1, the game that started the legacy of one of the most beloved game studios of the Commodore Amiga and Atari ST, the Bitmap brothers. They would later make some of the most memorable games of the late 80s and early 90s, most notably Xenon 2, Speedball and Speedball 2, Gods and the Chaos Engine. Hello and welcome to this first episode of Soundtracker. Today we are going to take a look at the soundtrack from Xenon 1 by David Whittaker. Let's roll! Xenon, not to be confused with Xenu, is a vertical shooter which came out early 1988, first on the Atari ST and then ported to various other platforms, including the Amiga. Looking back, the game hasn't aged very well. The controls are a bit stiff and the game is extremely difficult, but is still more than playable. Also, the possibility of switching between the tank mode and ship mode is pretty interesting. We have to remember that there were not a lot of good vertical shooters on these platforms at the time. Yeah. So this may be why the game is still remembered fondly by a lot of gamers who had the chance to play it when it came out. Another reason might be the soundtrack by David Whittaker. The two versions are identical except for the soundtrack and sound effects. Ironically enough, a lot of people prefer the ST version over the Amiga, despite the capabilities of the Amiga in that area. It's true that the simple waveforms of the ST give the music a spacey or sci-fi vibe, which fits the game well, while the choice of sound of the Amiga version could have been better. To give you an idea, let's compare the music for level 2. First the ST, then the Amiga. In the end, it's a matter of taste. I personally have a slight preference for the Amiga version. I mean, just listen to that boss music. You give me pounding drums and electric guitar, and I'm a happy man. Anyway, without further ado, let's delve into the music of Xenon. Not to be confused with Xena. There are 3 songs in the game, one being the in-game music for level 1 and 3, another for level 2 and 4, and the third is the boss battle theme that is used for every boss encounter. In this video, we will dissect and take a very close look at the first level song. I will take the Amiga version as an example, but the principle remains the same on both systems. The first thing to note is that there are 4 audio channels on the Amiga. On this song, one is dedicated to the drums, another to the bass, which leaves 2 channels that will each play a different melodic part at the same time. Since there are only 3 channels on the ST, the bass will play a snare sound to compensate. First, let's have a quick look at the drum part. You will notice that there are 2 snare drum samples alternating, which is a thing David Whittaker did in every song he created. I think the idea is to mimic the fact that a real snare drum will produce a slightly different sound each time you hit it. Let's listen to it. This very simple pattern will be played during the whole song. Now the bass. Again, we have a very simple bass line, which revolves around the root, the 5th, the octave, and the major 9th. The song starts in D, so that's D, 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 A, D, D, and D, E. Let's listen to it. As I said, on the ST, the bass channel will also play a sound that mimics a snare hit, and for that, we have to remove two notes in the bass line and replace them with the snare sound. Again, you will notice that Whittaker used two different sounds for the snare. Let's have a listen. Again, that simple bass line will be played throughout the whole song. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's focus on where the real meat of the song is, the melodic parts. There are 6 different melodic parts that will be played on the 2 remaining audio channels, and the whole song consists of different combinations of 2 of these themes played over the same drum and bass pattern. So let's break down these 6 themes into 2 groups. Group A will be assigned to a channel, Group B to another. Theme 1, 2 and 3 will be assigned to Group A, Theme 4, 5 and 6 to Group B. Each theme has the same length, which is 8 measures, so the song will play them in order. First we have 1 and 4, then 2 and 5, and then 3 and 6. But what happens next? If we loop back from here, we'll end up with the 3 same combinations over and over again. So, to remedy that, Group B will play theme number 6 one extra time, while Group A will loop back to theme 1. And so on and so forth. Here is a visual representation of the song in Cubase. The song progresses from left to right, like this. Each color represents a different audio channel. In blue we have the drums, in yellow the bass, and in red and green we have the 6 themes. We can see the 3 themes alternating in red, and in green we can see the same thing happening, except with theme number 6, which is played twice in a row each time. This will offset Group A and Group B by 1 theme and result in different combinations. This system is actually not very surprising given the fact that Whittaker was primarily a programmer before he started creating music, at first for his own games, like a lot of video game composers at the time. We should point out that each part needs to be quite simple if you don't want this to sound too messy, and you should make sure that each part can fit with one another. Let's have a look at all of them. First in red, the left channel. Theme 1. Here we have short notes, first on the root D and its octave, then C sharp and D 1 octave higher, which creates a dissonant sound. Rhythmically, something interesting happens. If we divide each beat into 4 notes, that would be 16th notes, then at first, every note is played every 4 16th notes. They all land on the beat, that is, on a bass drum hit or a snare drum hit. But after 2 measures, when the theme plays the C sharp and D, they are played every 5 16th notes. From here, the first note starts on the beat, the second is on the second 16th note of the second beat, the third note is on the third 16th note of the third beat, the fourth is on the fourth 16th note of the fourth beat, etc. This is a polyrhythm at its most basic level. We have something that loops on a 5-note pattern, because even if there's only 1 note played each time, it lasts 5 16th notes, and it's played over a 4/4 pattern. Let's listen to it. Modern metal bands like Meshuggah have pushed that principle to the maximum, but it's interesting to note that years before the band started incorporating polyrhythms as a core part of their sound, we can find glimpses of it in a humble video game from 1988. What's fascinating about it is that it mirrors the structure of the song itself, because we have on one channel 3 themes being played one after the other, and on the other we have also 3 themes repeating, but every 4 times, because one theme lasts longer than the others. In a way, the structure itself works like a polyrhythm.
And now...
Theme 2. We have short notes in the key of D minor, E, F, G, A 2 times, then D, F, A, E 2 times, and then repeated. The notes are not played on the beat, but on the afterbeat, meaning that if we play it over the drum track, each note will land on the hi-hat hit and not on the bass drum and snare drum hits. Let's have a listen. Theme 3. Here we have triads, i.e. 3-note chords, in the key of D minor. First we have D minor, then F major, then A minor, and finally C major. However, they are played melodically, that is, one note after the other instead of at the same time, which create this ascending melody. Let's listen to it. Now for the last 3 themes in green. Theme 4, we have a simple part consisting of the same notes being played on the root D with a string sound. The sound has a vibrato that gets progressively wider and the note bends up at the end, creating a dramatic effect. Let's listen to it. Theme 5, again a very simple part consisting of short notes being played on the beat, first on the root D, then on the 5th A. Here it is. When this is played with theme 2, something interesting happens. This theme plays notes on every beat, which means these notes will land on the bass drum and snare drum hits, while theme 2 plays notes on every afterbeat, which will land on every hi-hat hit. Together, they form a single melody with a stereo effect, because the audio channel of a theme is on one side and the other is on the other side. Let's have a listen. Theme 6. Finally, this last part consists of a fast D minor 7 ascending arpeggio. In order, the notes are DFA, FAC, ACD, CDF, and again DFA, etc. This may sound complicated, but harmonically it is the same as playing a minor 7 chord. Sometimes in the second half of the theme, the arpeggio is transposed in the 5th instead of the root. Here it will be A minor 7 instead of D minor 7. Let's listen to it. And these are all the melodic parts that will be played in the song. Now, on top of all that, there are 2 key changes that happen in the song. First, after 24 measures, the song goes from D to E, so that means that every note in every single part will be played a whole step higher from that point. Then, after 24 more measures, the song goes from E to C, so every note in every single part will be played 2 whole steps below E, or 1 whole step below D, if you will. Now, I was going to make a snarky comment about the fact that when the song goes up from D to E, every single part will go up, except for the drums, obviously. But then...
a most fascinating thing happened.
Let's listen to the isolated drum track when a key change occurs. Yes, when the song goes to E and C, the drum samples are played a step above or a step below their starting pitch, and I have no idea why. And it doesn't happen with the snare sound in the ST version. I may have a hypothesis, but I don't know if it's true. In a traditional music editor, when you want to repeat a section of a song but you want it to play in a different key, you usually have no other option than to create a new section by copying all the parts from the section you want repeated, and then modify all the notes. Maybe David Whittaker's music file format, which by the way he created himself, allows for an option to automatically change all the notes in a song section, which may explain why the drum samples pitches also change, or maybe it's intentional, who knows. In any case, put all of this together, all these parts, all these key changes, and you obtain the song for level 1 of Xenon. Not to be confused with Xenos.
For the Emperor!
I did leave a few things out. There are more changes happening in the song. Sometimes the themes are repeated with a different instrument or with slight variations. But the most important thing is that you get the general idea and concept behind the song structure. And I hope you have more appreciation for a song that doesn't look that complex at first glance, but there is more to it than meets the eye.
It's perfect in its simplicity, but complex in its subtlety.
This has been Gameplay. I hope you have a fantastic day, and may the metal and the 8 bits be with you. All the bits, all 8 of them. Subscribe to this channel if you don't want to miss any future video. Click here if you want to listen to my arrangement of the song we have analyzed today. Thank you for watching.